what types of tools or thinking frameworks, heuristics, mental models, anything would you focus on in the first handful of lectures?
The first thing I would tell them is the answer is really easy for almost everybody, but you're not going to believe me until you work it through yourself and understand it. And I'll tell you the answer to start with, and then I'll try to convince you that it's the right answer. So I'll just tell you the answer to start with. The answer is, if you're a long-term investor, you should just buy and hold equities. And the best place to have bought and hold equities has been the U.S. for the last couple of 100 years overall. Equities here have compounded at about 10 or 10.5% for 200 years. The data for the first 100 years is not as good as the data for the last 100, but the data for the last 100 is quite good and very well documented. How does that do against everybody else? Well, you can prove by logical and mathematical arguments, and I won't go into all the details here. Some of it's in my book. It's also in other places. You can prove that if a person simply buys the index and holds it, he will outperform most of all the other players. And he will simply, the people who buy and hold the index will beat the whole collection of people who don't do that. They do way better on average. The ones who don't do that pay trading costs. They have more volatility from diversification generally, from lack of diversification. And they often pay investment advisors and all this, and they also pay taxes when they trade. So the upshot is that you might make 10.5% if you don't pay all these people. You might make 8 or 7 or 6% if you pay the crowd of people waiting to, quote, help you, unquote. So that's the simple answer for people who don't know anything about investing. Now you might say, well, yeah, but I'm pretty smart. I hear all these stories. I listen to Kramer on TV. He jumps around and makes a lot of noise and sounds good. So why can't I do better? Well, the academics have something called the efficient market theory, in which they claim that you can't do better. Now, I've already explained that that's wrong. You can find instances where you can do better. Warren Buffett currently did much better. I found with my hedge fund I could do much better. But the kind of work you have to put in to do much better is substantial. It doesn't seem like it at first, but when you get into it, there are all kinds of details and follow-ups and things to be checked out. And you end up spending a substantial amount of time and energy figuring out how to do it better. And for everybody who finds out how to do it better, the rest of the crowd who isn't buying the index is doing a little bit worse, because you can show that the whole collection of people who don't buy the index are themselves as a group like the index. Because everybody as a group is like the index. You subtract the index part out, and the rest is like the index too. And so the people who aren't buying the index, but are like the index as a group, are busy paying all these costs, taxes, investment advisors, and so forth. So on average, that whole group does worse. So you're paying basically casino vigorish or whatever if you're not indexing. And you've got to beat that in order to do better than the indexers. And obviously, the group can't beat that. So it's only a small collection of people, some by luck and some by skill, who end up doing better. So you're basically betting against the odds if you just step in and buy stories and invest in various mutual funds that are actively managed and so forth. So that's what I would tell people. Now, on the other side of the coin, if you really are interested in investing, it's worth educating yourself and trying to do it, because you will learn a lot about investing. You might actually find a way to win, and you'll learn about how the world works and a lot about life too. The things you learn from what seems like a narrow specialized field generalize very widely. to all kinds of things if you're the kind of person who can take a lesson in one part of life and transport it to another part of life.